Okay, good afternoon. I want to provide an update on the fatal accident that occurred Sunday night. At about 11:23 p.m., there was a report of an accident at Elmwood and Amherst with a vehicle that was traveling at a high rate of speed that went through a red light and broadside a second vehicle, which then had a collision with a third vehicle. So it was a three-vehicle accident at this point. As I stated at the top, it was a fatal accident. The operator of the vehicle that went through the red light that was traveling south on Elmwood was being operated by a 14-year-old Buffalo male who was transported by AMR ambulance to ECMC and was pronounced dead at ECMC. To kind of back up just a few minutes before that, there was a marked Buffalo police vehicle that was parked on Hurdle Avenue at Sterling on a directed patrol that was in the area and observed this 2017 Hyundai Elantra traveling at a very high rate of speed westbound on Hurdle Avenue. The police car then pulled in that direction in an attempt to go in the direction of that vehicle, or at least attempt to what most likely would have been effectuate a traffic stop, but was in no position to be anywhere near the vehicle. Thorough review of our city cameras, and we are still conducting a video canvass for private cameras. The several different city cameras along the route on Hurdle show that the police car at no point had its emergency lights on and was not in what we would consider to be a pursuit driving mode. The vehicle was considerably ahead of the police car and eventually turned northbound on Botsford, which is beyond Delaware Avenue over just before Elmwood Avenue. That vehicle went up Botsford behind the LA Fitness and came out on the north side of LA Fitness. The police vehicle had observed that vehicle go up Botsford, also went up Botsford, went on the south side of LA Fitness, continuing to look for that vehicle. Again, the lights, we have no evidence at this point to show that the police lights were on the police vehicle. The subject vehicle, the Elantra, went through the Taco Bell parking lot, exited onto Hurdle Avenue, and then continued southbound on Elmwood Avenue. The police car at some point along this way then did engage its emergency lights in what I would consider to be an attempt to effectuate a traffic stop, but the speed of the vehicle continued increasing. A data download of this vehicle post-collision, and our accident investigation unit had the assistance of the New York State Police with a specific piece of equipment to help us download this vehicle. But a data download of this vehicle 5 seconds before collision showed that the vehicle speed was at 78 miles an hour, then went up to 82, 83 miles an hour, and then back to 82 upon collision, I believe, ended at 77 miles per hour at point of impact. The video, the city camera that we have at Elmwood and Amherst was pointing northbound on Elmwood in the direction of where the vehicles were coming from. It shows the subject vehicle, the Elantra, traveling southbound at a high rate of speed on Elmwood Avenue. There was a second a second uninvolved vehicle that was traveling south on Elmwood as well, that was second in line. That vehicle did not have headlights on. And then the police vehicle with its overhead lights was a little distance behind that uninvolved vehicle. So looking at what we're looking at on the video, I would not consider this to be a pursuit. This was not a pursuit at this time. This was still what I consider, based on what I have at this moment, that our police vehicle was attempting to make a traffic stop and attempting to stop an aggressive driver, but still wasn't in a position to be on top of that vehicle. And that's evident by the uninvolved vehicle that was still between the police car and this Hyundai Elantra. As I said, the vehicle was operated by a 14-year-old. This is a 14-year-old Buffalo school student that attended Southside Elementary School. I did speak with the superintendent on Monday morning once we had verification of identity and obtained more information to make sure that the schools were aware that one of their students had died. And I have to say that this is, an absolute tragedy, and my condolences go out to the family. My condolences go out to the friends of this young man. This is an absolute awful ending to a situation that did not have to happen. It's a tragedy for the city of Buffalo, and it's also very impactful on our officers that had to witness that and that were also there attempting to help this young man. As part of our normal protocol, our accident investigation unit is leading this investigation, and it's a considerable investigation. We also have internal affairs has been looking in. They were called out that night. And as is normal protocol, we also contacted the Attorney General's office out of an abundance of caution. Spoke with the Attorney General's office a little while ago, and what they consider the stage of this investigation is investigatory per New York State executive order to determine whether or not they even have jurisdiction to investigate this case. So this is part of the normal looking at the case, looking at the circumstances, and see if it fits a death in custody or not. And at that point, then they will determine whether they have jurisdiction. So we are cooperating. We're providing all information with the Attorney General's office, and they are getting all the information that we have, whether it be video, obviously the data download, and other circumstances of the case. So this is an ongoing investigation. It is a rather in-depth investigation. There's a lot of video. Yesterday was a holiday. There were businesses that were closed. It slowed up our investigation. It slowed up our ability to pull video. I would have spoken on this yesterday, but I just did not have the information that I have today to speak in depth or in detail about this case. We are definitely making progress on how this is going along, but it's going to take more time. We obviously want to make sure we pull as much video as possible, and then that will also lead to ultimately interviewing the officers and anybody else that was involved. So with that, I will take some questions.
Can you tell us about the 14-year-old? I didn't see the name, and also was it a stolen car?
Thank you. I neglected to point that out. At the time of the accident, at the time of this incident, the vehicle was not reported stolen. It has since been determined that the vehicle was stolen. We had some difficulty locating the owner of the vehicle, which I couldn't answer some questions that were coming in from the media yesterday. Although I certainly speculated that this was going to be a situation of a stolen vehicle, we were not able to contact the owner. It wasn't until later in the day yesterday that contact was made with the owner. We did obtain a statement. The last time the owner observed their vehicle was about 7 p.m. on Sunday. We have license plate reader hits in various parts of the city of this vehicle. In fact, we have license plate reader hits and video from the license plate reader showing the vehicle on Grant Street a little after 8 p.m. The vehicle is shown with other occupants because there is somebody that is hanging out of the passenger side of the vehicle, sitting on the door and hanging onto the roof of the vehicle on Grant Street. We have several LPR hit videos showing that there was no one else in the car at the time of the collision. So somewhere between 8 and 11:23, or maybe a few minutes before 11:20, the other occupants, and we don't know who they are at this time, but we're working to determine that, had exited the vehicle. What we also have found is at the scene of where the vehicle appears to be stolen from, there was another stolen vehicle that was left running. So we show that occupants that took that vehicle left the first stolen vehicle, got into this vehicle, stole this vehicle, and took off from there. That is a common occurrence where, and I'm going to say our youth, because that's the primary driver of these stolen cars, they are going from one stolen car to the next stolen car to the next stolen car, and they're ditching those, they're leaving those, or in some instances, other occupants of the vehicle will just go take another one and they'll drive these stolen vehicles in tandem.
Was this stolen in that classic way where they do the back window?
I don't have I didn't dig into the details with the detectives on how the car was stolen. I just know that it was stolen.
Are you releasing the name?
I'm not going to at this point. We will get the name out. So for the purpose of this, I'm not going to release it right now.
Are you able to say if I know you can't identify the individual, but this individual has been known to law enforcement for prior car theft?
To the best of my knowledge right now, no. We are still digging into some of the details. But to the best of my knowledge right now, where I stand here right now, no.
And what about the people in the other vehicles where one was apparently struck and another? Do you know how bad, if anyone was badly injured or what their injuries were?
Thankfully, more minor injuries. I believe treated at the scene and released from the scene is to the best of my knowledge of this.
You said that some people that Elantra hit one car, is that second vehicle hit third car? Or did Elantra hit both cars?
You know what? I'm sorry. I don't know exactly how that laid out. I was looking into this part of it. So I'm not sure which vehicle, the second vehicle hit the third vehicle.
Just to clarify again for our managers, they're just trying to determine again. When you said this was not an actual pursuit, one more time, if you could this, I know you were explaining it all, but you did not consider this an actual pursuit, correct?
Yeah, so if I can explain, kind of how this works out and when you're in a pursuit. Our police officers are charged with enforcing the laws. They're in charge of enforcing whether it be vehicle and traffic laws or whether it be criminal laws. And you have to put yourself in a position to at least attempt, when it's going to come to a vehicle and traffic stop, whether it be for a vehicle and traffic violation or for a crime, you have to at least be able to get yourself into a position to attempt to stop that vehicle, to detain that vehicle. There is a point there, and I kind of like to refer to it as at the gray area of, is this car refusing to pull over? Does this car even know that I'm behind them? And look, I was in a police car for a long time, and I stopped plenty of vehicles. And there are plenty of times where someone, even with all the lights going, didn't stop right away, and then eventually they do stop. And the first thing they say is, I didn't even see you behind me. So there has to be a little bit of a time there, and that's why I kind of call it that gray area of whether or not that vehicle is willfully refusing to pull over, didn't see you, and then pull over. What we have uncovered so far in this investigation is that the police car was not even, I'll say, on top of the vehicle or in a position to what we would consider like that pulling over position where they're there, you're the target of that stop, and to pull over. The video that we have right now, particularly the city camera that shows on Elmwood Avenue pointing northbound from Amherst, shows that there was a second uninvolved vehicle between the subject vehicle and the police car, and that middle car. And I believe we did interview that individual that was the vehicle between them, because they did pull over and stop. So for the purposes of as I stand here right now talking to you, I do not consider this to be a pursuit. They were still in that attempt to identify the vehicle, and because the vehicle wasn't stolen yet, wasn't reported stolen yet, it would not have hit on a license plate reader, would not have hit, had the officers obtained the license plate, entered in their computer, would not have shown as stolen at that time.
Was the car stolen from the city of Buffalo?
It was stolen. It is not registered in the city of Buffalo, but it was stolen from within the city of Buffalo, yes.
And were there any other cars or kids involved outside of the ones that were inside of this car earlier in the night?
So there are other individuals that were on scene, were not in the car. We did interview a couple of other juveniles. We are continuing that investigation as well. And we are looking to determine what, if any, their involvement was in either that car earlier or the other car that was left abandoned and still running when this particular car was stolen.
You hear the term Kia Boys. This was obviously a Hyundai, but do you think that sort of initiation, that sort of, I don't want to use the term gang, but was involved in this sort of situation?
That I can't say at this point. I mean, the term Kia Boys came out, obviously, there's a group that started, and I could be wrong on this. I think it was in Milwaukee. I'm not sure where it started, but they started stealing these Kias, and they started calling them, referring to themselves. And now you have kids all over the place that are referring to themselves as the Kia Boys. You also have individuals out there that, unfortunately at 14 years old, and this is about kind of that sweet spot of what we see that are involved, these, 13, 14, up to 17, 18-year-olds that are involved in the thefts of these cars, and they're doing it for no other purpose other than something to do joyriding. We also know that we have a faction out there, and I'm not saying this case, I'm speaking, generally. We have a faction out there that are stealing these cars and are committing violent crimes in them. That was not the case here, and I'm not saying it's the case here. I'm just answering your question generally.
What was the time frame from the time that the speeding vehicle was first seen until the crash? How many minutes?
I don't have the minutes on top of me. I think we can all assume that it's going to be just within a few minutes. It's not going to be a long time to go from Hurdle and Sterling down Hurdle Avenue, then up Botsford, around the LA Fitness, through the parking lot out to Taco Bell, and then down Elmwood Avenue. It's not going to be a lot of time. It's only going to be several minutes.
Was the speed of the time? Was the speed of the consistent throughout when I first saw the vehicle? Was it going 75, 80?
I don't know. We have not interviewed the officers yet. We will get to that, but I don't know what their speed estimation is. Now, we know the speed of the Elantra at the time of impact and 5 seconds before. The way the data download of vehicles occurs is there has to be an event. There has to be something that occurs, a collision, and then it'll capture, that black box will capture all the conditions of the vehicle. And we have downloaded the vehicle, and that's why we're able to capture that last 5 seconds ahead of time. So we do not have an estimated speed of the vehicle The information we got that night is that it was traveling at a very high rate of speed on Hurdle Avenue.
I know we've spoken to you before, but a 14-year-old, 8 p.m., 11 p.m. on a school night, what are we supposed to do about this population of kids in our city?
You know, I don't know that it's what we are supposed to do, obviously. And again, I'm speaking generally here, very generally. But this is where, you know, parents, guardians, you know, have to know where their kids are. I've said this many times from this very podium and elsewhere. They have to know where their kids are. They have to know what they're doing. You know, keeping our kids occupied in whether it be after school events, community events, sporting events, things of that nature is obviously going to have a more positive impact on our youth. I know the schools has a lot of programs. There's community violence interrupters. There's church groups. There's a variety of different, PAL is a big one, Boys and Girls Clubs. There's a variety of outlets that will help keep our youth engaged. And if there's parents out there, any families out there that are really having a very difficult time with their kids, that they just can't control them, then I encourage you to reach out to your clergy, reach out to the various violence interrupter organizations, reach out to your teachers at school, maybe coaches at school, to try to help and get some intervention. Again, I'm just speaking generally, not specific to this case.
Yeah, so I talked to a parent who is dealing with this, not the parent of this child,
Okay.
who is at a wit's end. Like she does call the cops on her child. She does, she's tried every one of these things and it doesn't work. And she feels like, the laws are against, and I know police officers have said this too, that there's, especially when it's a juvenile, there's very limited amount of things you can do. I mean, what can be done? I mean, you have a 14-year-old shouldn't be dead in a car accident like this, right?
A 14-year-old should not be dead in a car accident, should not be dead in any type of encounter like this. The laws are against us. I've said that many times as well. Bail reform, the real effects, the practical application of bail reform has caused significant problems throughout New York State. And it's not just me saying this, it's chiefs all across New York State that are saying this. And there is no accountability. That makes it very difficult. What I would say to, that particular parent, that mother, is that, the police are not the outlet to help get your child in a better situation. We do, however, have a couple different outlets of the police that can help with that, whether it be our school resource officers or our neighborhood engagement team. Why are they so helpful? And would I consider them not necessarily the police side of things, even though they do wear uniforms and they are police officers? Obviously, school resource officers have access to a bunch of school activities and other outlets they can help guide that student into. And I've said this many times, that our school resource officers are there to help build relationships, build bridges, build a foundation with our youth. We also have our neighborhood engagement team that works with violence interrupters, works with PAL, works with a bunch of different organizations, and can help guide our youth into more positive outlets, whether it be sporting events or other types of things. But what I would encourage is that parent is to work with the school, but like I said, contact clergy, contact PAL, even that Big Brothers and Big Sisters is still out there. There's a lot of different avenues that can try to help at least weigh in and try to help save that youth from going down the wrong path.
So that 14-year-old, very tragic ending. What if they'd just been stopped? What if the police officer was able to pull that kid over? What would have happened?
So we would have had to have determined whether or not the car was stolen. Obviously, as I said, it was not reported stolen. Our experience and common sense tells us that car would have ended up being a stolen vehicle had we pulled it over. If we couldn't contact the owner, we would get that information onto a report. We would locate a parent, a guardian, which we would have to turn that child over anyways to, and then we would follow up. Our detectives would follow up and look to see if the owner of that vehicle wants to press charges. And I'll use this as another message. When people report their car stolen, we need you to follow up when we have somebody in your car. And it may be a little futile at times because the system isn't being very helpful in this, but unless and until we establish some kind of track record, and if you're going to report your car stolen, we need these arrests to be made. That can possibly be an outlet for family court to maybe get this juvenile into some other program and force a program on somebody.
At any point did the officer who was following the car call for backup?
I think this happened, so relatively quickly. They wanted to even get an officer Bolo out. I don't know if they were on the air yet. That's still something that we're looking into. If they got on the air to call this out, but it's these things do happen at times as well, where our officers are getting on the radio to put notifications out to the cars in the area so that they don't get taken out in an intersection. So, this really was a very fast evolving situation.
So you didn't have Arrow 1 in there?
No, not at this. No, we did not. No.
Last one. Did you have, if the Porsche Arrows were a seatbelt crash?
I don't know. I can't answer that question right now. I don't know. I can surmise the answer to that, but I'm going to wait until I actually have the answer.
Can you say anything about injuries or?
No, I'm not going to get into the injuries at this point.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.